Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry.
Also joining me is Evgeni.
Hi, so show and tell.
You're not in your room anymore.
I am in my office this time. I switch things around. Sometimes I'm in the basement, sometimes I'm in the first floor, sometimes I am in my bedroom.
God.
So I'm Argent. I do show and tell on this podcast and sometimes have not so hot takes. So for the show component of show and tell, I got this postcard looking thing. It says fight like a girl, and then it has some badass girls that fight.
From Star Wars.
From Star Wars, yeah. Excellent. I recognize two of them.
Yep.
And for my tell, I will read from my words of wisdom. They're not mine.
Oh.
But I will turn to a random page.
I hope these are short.
Yeah.
Never. So it's a bunch of like one-liners or two-liners.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Let's say convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies. That is by Friedrich Nietzsche.
Well, we could go on a long thing about honor and stuff with that, but
and truth and lies.
Yeah.
The
But
assuredness movement.
yeah, but this is not a This one is not a Cosmere podcast. This is going to be a non-Cosmere podcast. Also joining us is Shannon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gray.
And lastly, we have Ben.
Hello, you guys know me as Overlord Jebus, and I have a mini screwdriver. There you go. That's my show and tell.
Nice.
There you go.
Mini screwdrivers are great.
They are good.
I was hoping it would be a drink, honestly.
I mean, I've got my water. Got some good water.
What?
Oh heck yeah! Let's touch
it.
I mean, I have a multi-tool that has a screwdriver in it.
I have tools. Should I grab my tools for this? Is that what we're doing here?
Apparently.
We're just going to move on from grabbing people's tools, and we're just going to move on to other subjects.
I have that on hand.
Or showing our own tools.
Nope. Why do you do this every episode, guys?
Man, this podcast is just a
That
bunch
was
of
not
tools, really.
us. You cannot blame us for that. That was 100% Argent.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a
Put
solid
it on
point.
Evgeni.
That's a good
It's
point.
like 80% Argent, okay? There was a little bit of Ben and Gray there.
And I'm
you,
Chaos,
I
and
appreciate
we're
the
moving
acknowledgement.
on to the show now. And what we're talking about today is we're talking about the original, a audio original.
The original audio original. The original.
Yeah. We've made all of these jokes.
I am running these jokes into the ground. I've been like thinking these up all week.
So your jokes are not original.
You thought about these beforehand?
Yeah.
No, he
I
said
can't
them.
remember any of them, but I've definitely planned some.
Okay.
Anyway, this came out on the 14th. It's a collab with Brandon and Mary Robinette Cole. And so we're going to talk about it slightly later, but then we had a chance to listen to it. So that's fun. So we'll start with some spoiler-free reactions, and then we'll pretty quickly get into spoiler stuff. But if you want to know what we think, we'll do that spoiler-free real quick. So, but what's the premise of this?
So the kind of rough shape of the story is we live in a futuristic society, and our main character, Holly, wakes up in a hospital. Turns out she's essentially a clone. They call them provisional replicas. And she is a clone because her original, the person she was kind of made from, apparently killed her husband. And so in the society, they have a thing where sometimes they make clones of those originals to hunt those originals down. And then if they succeed, they kind of take their place in society.
Not creepy at all. That premise. But yeah, that's the premise. So what did you guys think of the story?
I'm
I liked
positive.
it. Like, originally, when Brandon first started talking about the story, I was not excited about this story at
I remember.
all. I was just like,
Clones.
but
whatever.
once it was announced that he was co-writing it with Mary Robinette, I thought that was interesting. So I'm like, okay, this might actually be good. And then I listened to it, and it was great. Mostly, I have issues with the end, but
we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
Shannon, what did you think?
Oh, I was very positive on it. I had a great time with it. I am not an audiobook person, so I was like, I am just going to get myself through this so I get through the story. But I had a great time. I really liked it.
Ian, are you normally an audiobook person, or what is your feel on audiobooks? That should really be connected in with our general thoughts.
Yes, I'm becoming more of an audiobook person as the years go by, just because it's just easier because I can listen to it as I'm falling asleep. I can listen to it while I'm at work. And so, yeah, it doesn't really affect me one way or the other at this point. As long as the narrator isn't terrible, which Julia Whalen is not. She is pretty good.
I thought it was really good. Evgeni, what'd you think?
I'm also not an audiobook person, and part of that is because a lot of the things I do are on my computer, whether it is for pleasure or for work, and those things require my brain, so I can't really have an audiobook going on because I just miss things, or they distract me or whatever. This being said, I did listen to this on my computer, kind of in between other tasks, so it wasn't just a single 3.5 hour, 4 hour take. And so it wasn't gripping enough where it grabbed me and just forced me to listen to it for the entire duration. I would pause, I listened to this 4 hours over the period of 2 days or whatever. If I were outside or walking or just doing something physical or whatever, I think I would have enjoyed it well enough. But just going my normal workflow or life flow, I guess, it was fine. I really, really like the world building. I was pleasantly impressed, I guess, if you are pleasantly surprised by Julia Whalen, the narrator. I think she did a fantastic job. Is it worth the $10? Maybe. I'm gonna go with a resounding maybe on that one. It's a good story. It's not a 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 story.
On the subject of it being worth, I think this gets into the same issues people had with the White Sand graphic novels, where the amount of story you get isn't commensurate with the price you have to pay. If you're just going in for words on the page, you have to change your perspective.
Different format, different value kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I'm an audiobook person. I have a 90-minute commute every morning and evening, and so I go through a lot of audiobooks. And so I'd say, I'm an audiobook, and as an audiobook, I think it was really good. I think, who was the audiobook lady? It was
Julia Whalen.
Julia Whalen did a great job at giving Holly a lot of personality. I really liked that. As a bit of short science fiction, I am a big fan of that kind of classical style of short sci-fi where you kind of get an idea and you use a short bit of fiction to really fully explore the idea. And I feel like this was kind of like that, but with lots of ideas. And so even though I liked it, I was like, I still have a lot of questions about the idea ideas you've presented me. So in a kind of similar to how, what was it called? The Mind Blade ones, the ones that Starsight based on.
Defending Elysium.
Yes, Defending Elysium was an idea. Every paragraph was introduced. Basically.
That's a dead story.
That was chock full of ideas, and I feel like this is kind of like that, where it was here's just a load of ideas, and they're not all explored fully as I'd like them, but I still liked the story and I liked the ideas it presented.
Brandon packing ideas into a story. That's never happened before.
And they cut ideas out.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I was listening to the
original
live
idea.
stream. But there was
Yeah.
like supposed to be like androids about as well as all the people as well. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I guess we should mention there was a live stream with Brandon and Mary Robinette. I don't remember the date, but it was like mid-September.
Yeah.
If you want to go and hear them sometimes talk about the original and sometimes, most of the times, talk about just them being like friends and colleagues, you can go give that a listen. They offer a little bit of insight into things like how the collaboration worked, how it was different or similar from quote unquote regular collaborations, some deleted content, as Ben alluded to, and things like that.
Cool.
It's on
And Mary
Brandon's YouTube
Robinette
channel.
is just an incredibly smart woman,
Yeah.
and you should always listen to whatever she says.
That is true. Yes. I work now on Thursday during the semester, so I don't get to see the live streams. So like it sucks.
Aw.
And it's like, not watching them live. I just don't care. But I'll have to like give that a listen. So I do not like audiobooks. I have never finished an audiobook before. This is the only audiobook I have ever finished. But that is usually because similar to Evgeni, I'm usually at my computer. I'm usually doing things, and when I'm doing things, I want like things that I can sort of be in the background, and books I have to actually pay attention to. Like watching TV shows is even like kind of hard because I'll just like miss facets. And the other thing is that like I can read way faster than listen. But my brain just has a hard time processing lyrics. Even like it's just really difficult for me to do that.
Yeah.
So I listened to this at normal speed. I really liked it. I thought it was a very positive experience. Still don't know if I'd listen to audiobooks driving, even on long road trips, because I like my peppy pop music to keep me awake. But no, the narration was really good. The story was pretty good. I listened to it all in basically one sitting because I listened to it yesterday for the podcast. Because that's what I do on this show. Is I finish it right before the end. I took a walk and then I was doing some cleaning, and so that got me about like 2 hours into it, and then I was just on my computer, and I did see myself zoning out a lot more being at my computer, but I think I got most of the things in it. We'll find out. But I thought it was really good. Definitely I do have a lot of questions about the ending as well, but yeah, it was quite positive. I can see why people like it, and the narration was great. I really thought that the music actually did add a thing to it. Like,
Yes.
there's a scene in a nightclub, and I thought that was like really good.
I really like to see the nightclub.
The nightclub, like the music really added to a nightclub aesthetic. I was like, okay, all right. There is something about this being purely audio that like it did add something, because I was worried I would just be annoyed that I couldn't read it.
And on the nightclub note, this is one of the scenes they specifically brought up during the live stream. And I don't remember exactly why, but I think it was in the context of Brandon wrote the scene and then Mary had to go back to him and like, this is not going to work in an audiobook format. And so I think they had to work a little bit and get the music to happen there. And the music really, really helped.
Yeah. Totally did.
Before I started, I had seen a lot of people complaining about the music and that it overwhelmed the narration, but I did not find that to be the case at all. Like
I didn't find that either. I felt it was very easy to understand as a person who doesn't understand it very well. So that's me at least. So your mileage may vary.
Just on a note, like praising Julia Whelan, as this was my first audiobook, I didn't think I would enjoy narration, because to me it's sort of like I hear people like reading from books, and it's fine, but like there's like the voice people have when they read from books, but this was not like that. This was just like normal talk. I was like, wow, I didn't realize like audiobook narration like could be like this. Like, so
she narrated it like she was the character, like
yeah. So it's I don't see myself doing a lot of audiobooks in the future, because like Eric, I just read so much faster. I can get through a book in a couple days, whereas like an audiobook would have me sitting there for a week trying to find time to
Oathbringer,
get
over
through
50 hours. Do you want to do that? I don't understand people doing that, but sure, if that's yeah.
Yeah, no. But yeah, it was a great experience. Like I didn't know audiobooks, like, it's like it felt like it added something. Like this was a good trade-off for the time it took to get through the story. I was like, yeah, you know what? Julia Whelan's performance, I'm like, I can see this being worth it to people. So,
and I will say, like, part of the reason, like, sometimes narration works and sometimes it doesn't, is it's a lot harder to get it right when it's third person. I feel like,
yes,
with this being in first person, like, it does give it that sense of character. Like, this person is telling you this story.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Like,
it is a good
still,
point.
like, third person, it can still be great. Not trying to say it can't be, but like, it can be sometimes easier with first person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, but I keep thinking, so the nightclub scene and the music specifically made me think of the graphic audio adaptations of many, many books. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but with graphic audio, the way they do the adaptations, they are far more dramatic and far more, I want to say immersive, but for some people it's not immersive, like it kicks them out of the story, but you get far more in world kind of special effects, music, like sounds and things like that.
So I have a question. So although you guys saying this is your first audiobook, so I assume this is also your first Audible original.
Well, it's not through specifically Audible, but audio original. Yes.
So for Audible originals, a lot of them, that graphic audio style where it's kind of like that's kind of Audible original style. Like I listen to, I think the only other ones I've ever done are the Alien novels because I'm Alien. So with those Audible originals, they'll have like a full cast of characters. They'll have sound effects, and they'll have this is the kind of style Audible originals kind of go with. Is they have sound effects, music. Yeah.
So it's probably more that we are looking at the difference between a written book being adapted to audiobook and something that's designed to be audio first.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And graphic audio is obviously adaptations, but they like go through that extra step to go through the book and like cut the he said, she says, and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the main reason I brought them up is because they are, for the most part, the third person, like especially Brandon's, and the delivery the voice actors make doesn't make it feel like it's a lot closer to what we get with the original. Where
because
the
like
line
each character
delivery
has their voice. Yeah.
And the line delivery is like delivered as if a person is speaking, like with emotion, with cadence, with I think they sometimes bring the cast in the same place to record like conversations between their characters.
Yeah, that having like cadence and like actual emotion behind the words being said is important, because I've listened to audiobooks where they're super monotonous, where they're just reading words off a page. It's awful. It's a nightmare. I cannot listen to audiobooks where they're like that.
Yeah, like you want like action scenes to be read a little faster, like which Julia did really well. That's like you feel that intensity more. It's like
she sounds stressed, like like, and she's like like breathing a little harder, like I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it.
It was a great performance. Like I was very impressed by that. So, do we want to go into spoilers now?
Yes.
So the spoilers.
Yeah. All right. So, by the way, massive spoilers. It's not that long, really. So now we're gonna spoil the whole thing. So time to stop if you don't.
To the ending. We might talk about the ending. Do we just want
to go right to the end? Do we want to go with like the end of the mystery and just talk about that?
I think so.
Yeah, we probably need to. Yeah. That's kind of the main thing, right? So basically, the solution to the mystery is that her husband Jonathan had a real job, and he was working on with the government, with like the nanites and things like that.
Memory tech specifically.
And memory tech. And Jonathan discovered that the government had a backdoor to read people's memories and edit them when people are revived.
I thought he found the backdoor that no one else knew about yet. And that's why they kind of wanted, that's why they wanted his mind stuff because they're like, oh, you found a back door, let us know where it is.
I thought they were using the back door and he like locked it so no one else could use it. Am I totally off base there?
So he discovered it. It was never clear whether the government had actually made use of that.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember. Like he discovered it, but he
discovered that it was possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's ambiguous on whether it was used.
I mean, for me, the fact that the government was like after him after he discovered it made me think that they didn't know about it and they wanted him to tell them about it. Is kind of the impression I got.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they already knew about it, like why would they?
Yeah, because he went to a thing to, I guess, confront people in the government about it, and he died. And they made a provisional replica of Jonathan, and then that provisional replica was what Holly, the original Holly, used to. That's what Holly killed.
Is that what happened?
Yes, it was a provisional replica that Holly.
I thought he went off grid and they made PR to
he went off
down.
grid. Like he
didn't go to a place like to hunt anyone. He went off grid, and the provisional replica then hunted him down and killed him, and then took his place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is true. This is maybe I shouldn't be doing the recap.
I have half a page of notes.
Oh, that's good. I didn't take any notes. So that's the original Holly killed provisional replica Jonathan, and that's what happens.
Yes.
See, I'm glad that you guys have notes because I didn't realize that's what happened. I thought the original Jonathan committed suicide, so I had a different. I
technically he killed himself. I mean,
but they made this whole. Why bring up Jonathan's like depression if it wasn't?
I don't think it was super clear on whether or not he committed suicide or the provisional replica killed him.
Yeah.
Original Holly definitely thought it was the PR that killed him.
Yeah.
That's why she killed him.
But what is in the story is that at one point, about 2 weeks before the party that is kind of the inciting incident of this whole thing, John checks out. He stops going to the renewal stations and goes on a business trip, quote unquote.
Right.
At which point he disappears, and the quote unquote John that comes back is actually the PR.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And at the very end, both the PR Holly points a gun at original Holly, and the original Holly points a gun at the PR, and it's ambiguous as to which one died, but the very last chapter is just a thing. There's like audio logs that the original Holly is sending to PR Holly, and then there's just one more audio log that's like, dear self, and like it's clear that one died.
Yeah.
Who do we think it is?
Who do we think it is?
And I think there's a line that is like, whoever is making that audio log at the end is saying, I wanted to live even in this half existence that I have, or something like that.
Yeah.
I have thoughts on the end.
What do you guys think?
I think it was written to be deliberately ambiguous.
Absolutely.
Yes. Everything there could apply to either one.
Yep.
On purpose.
And I think that was a good use of the Audible format because it's the same person talking, and so you have one voice actress, and like you don't know who it is because of the way that she says it, because she's the voice actress for both of them.
Yep.
You would get the same effect in written text, though.
Yeah, you just don't put any dialogue text. Okay.
I don't. Not that it doesn't matter to me which one it was that kind of was the one in the end. For me, in fact, I actually would have been happy if it had just cut to black with them both just standing in the gallery, and like we hadn't got that last audio log that said one of them died, because I would have liked. I love me a good ambiguous ending, and I felt like I was like, when it ended there, I was kind of like, oh, that was really good, and then it started talking again. I was like, oh, okay, we got a bit more, and then I thought, I don't know, I felt it was stronger if they hadn't had that last audio log. But yeah, because to me, it doesn't matter which one of them survived.
I agree that I would have liked it to cut before that second audio log. because I've actually put a lot of thought into this on why I liked it then, but not after the audio log.
Ooh, yeah.
It is, I like ambiguity when it happens after the story. I don't like ambiguity when it happens during the story. Which means like if we had cut off with them, like the standoff, it's like, ooh, like what happens next? I don't know. Whereas now it's like, okay, I know one of them died, but which one? Like, I want to know the answer to that.
Yeah.
It like, so that like frustrates me. It's like, it happened, like I should know the answer. Whereas if it had happened just before that, it's like, I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like, we didn't get that far.
I thought of it as like the Inception ending. It's sort of like, we're not going to tell you, you decide for yourself.
It really is a lot like that, isn't it?
Yeah. I think cutting off before the last recording would have been just not satisfactory to me. Like, I feel like the story wasn't closed at that point. I feel like there was no resolution. What that resolution is a subject of debate. Maybe there are endings better than the recording. I don't know. But to actually address the main question of this, I think it's the original.
Yeah.
I was very on the fence at first. The second time listening this, I paid special attention to the exact phrasing of what is happening in that last voice recording. So before the last voice recording, it could be either one of them. Both of them start with the intent of killing the other. Both of them eventually understand the other better and kind of lower their guns. And then obviously because of the recording, one of them actually lifts the gun faster than the other and kills somebody. And so listening to those phrases at the very end, we have no one heard the gun, which I don't remember exactly, but I don't recall energy weapons making like a loud sound or any sound at all. Because the standoff is PR Holly. Go ahead, Ben.
When it hits people, like, and it puffs off them, no one even notices a thing has happened. So I'm assuming they're silent.
Yeah. Well, the theming also edits it out.
Yeah, that was my impression. Like,
but I don't remember like bangs. And so PR Holly is wielding an energy gun that can kill her original. The original is using an actual like old school revolver.
Yep.
That's gonna make noise. So we have that. We also have, and I quote, "I am a more honest version of myself from before when I believed all the lies." Obviously, the these are lies, you are a liar, and things like that are very much a thing for the original Holly, not so much for the PR. And while I can see a switcheroo happening, it doesn't. PR Holly, as we know her as a character, wouldn't say something like that at this point. Yeah. And then at the near very end of that recording, there's actually the person making the recording says, goes through the things they will no longer be able to experience. No more iris-clad renewals, making a reference to the theme that Holly uses in the renewal station, which is like an iris that she walks into. No more lies, the author of the recording says. And so these are things that are specific to people who are checked in, right? Because if you're checked in, you're checking in every week, you're doing your nanites, you're getting your renewal. And so if you're saying you're not going to get these things anymore, then you're a checkout. That's what that's saying. Yeah. And combined with the no more lies,
it does make it sound like it's the original. Yeah. Because the PR doesn't strike me, wouldn't check out. Like, she doesn't strike me.
She can't. She dies if she checks out.
She can't.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand.
No, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, I definitely got the impression that it was the original.
Yeah,
and I did not like that because I really wanted PR Holly to survive and become a government agent with Skylar.
Like, it is
I like them.
designed to be ambiguous with like this half-life and things like that. But like it definitely does apply to original Holly too, because her entire life is destroyed. Like she's not living her old happy life anymore. So
yeah.
And I think even if original Holly shot a regular gun, I think everyone else's theming will just tune out the gun unless it like specifically affected them or something, right? Like wouldn't that always happen?
That is accurate. But the fact that she's saying no one heard the gun implies that there was noise that the gun made. That
Okay.
Even if
I
it was
never
edited
did
out.
get the impression that energy weapons were silent, though. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they have to be silent for sure.
Yeah, they don't have to be. I agree.
What do you think, Shannon?
When I first heard it, I was like, oh, the original did it, and then I was like, wait, maybe it was the replica. So then I went back and forth, and then I kind of like landed on like it's the replica, if only because I don't believe with the emotional state of this is just based on like the replica's read of the original during that scene of like the replica being so sure that the original is not going to kill her, and I'm like that rang a little bit more true to me in that I don't think I think the original like was feeling much more guilty about it than she was expecting to. She was like, she said liar, but at the same time, she's still trying to justify herself to her own replica. So it's sort of, I don't know. I kind of buy it when the replica was like, she doesn't have it in her to kill me. She wants to be justified more than she wants to, more than she wants anything else. It's sort of like, I kind of got the feeling like the original had nothing else in her life. Like she kind of like, upended her own life. She like it's not even like a half life. She has nothing left. Whereas like the replica actually has something. She has that connection with Skylar and like a possible future. Like as soon as she kills her original, she can like function as a regular member of society. They'll take away the fact that she has to die outside of renewal stations. So So it was just like the replica has always lived in the world. Like as soon as she left the hospital where like none of the theming worked, she already lived in a world where nothing was the same again. And I don't know, just thematically.
I think
for character reasons.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
For me, I think with the ambiguity of the ending, I think one of the reasons I would have liked it to cut just before the last voice call is I would have liked the option that neither of them shot either.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that was an outcome that could have happened. Like if they'd cut there, we could have argued whether one of them shot the other, which one shot
I didn't think they were going to do it until
I didn't think they were going to do it
until the last audio log.
True.
I really didn't think that one of them was actually going to kill the other.
But I did like the audio log though because it did give some character closure though. So I think I do agree with Evgeni that if it just faded to black, I don't think I would have liked that. Whereas like this, at least it's ambiguous, but it does give some character closure for Holly, in a sense.
But you don't know which Holly.
Well, that's what makes it a fun thing to talk about. Usually I don't really like ambiguous endings. Like, I don't think I love the ending because of it, because I don't really like that.
I think that in sci-fi stories about clones and replicas, and we follow it, and we follow a story following the replica. This is a common theme in many sci-fi stories, just about personhood, and like especially if they were going to bring androids into it, like the concept of personhood is so important in like these high concept sci-fi stories. It's it's a tragedy if the original lives, but this is like a story of self-fulfillment and this she does count as a person if it's the replica who lives.
Part of my read of the original was that the original did not feel that PRs were people, like they were things.
Yes,
that's true.
Which is part of why I think she was the one to kill the PR, because like she isn't killing someone. Like
she's killing.
Whereas PR Holly like has to contend with like, I am killing a person.
Yeah. And whilst, yes, I might have previously thought that PRs weren't people, I know PRs are people because I am one. Yeah.
To offer a point of support in the PR Holly lived, one of the very first lines we get in the entire thing is so Holly, the Holly we are going to soon find out is a provisional replica, wakes up in the hospital and she's describing the environment and the people around her, and she thinks to herself, or she says, and I remember this very vividly. And then goes on to tell us what she remembers very vividly. The way that read to me or sounded to me was as if this entire audio drama, audio original, is kind of like a memoir of somebody who's telling us, like, yes, it is all in past tense, but this, and I remember this very vividly, stands out to me as a weird thing to say in a like a standard third person limited story.
That's a good point. Interesting.
And if we interpret the end being PR Holly living, like the lack of iris clad like renewals, because like she went in the renewals and she knows like, yeah, this is not what I've ever thought it would be, except when I was a teenager and stuff, so she wouldn't have that. Was there any other line in that audio log that required the person who lived to definitely check out? Because I think you said the iris
I don't think so.
Yeah, so her half-life could have just been like, yeah, I mean, I don't have the life that I had before. Or, I mean, I guess she never had it because she's a clone. But the life that she remembers. So the half-life definitely could be PR Holly, because that makes sense within her characterization. And, I mean, her decisions of, trusting Skylar definitely makes sense that she did want to live, right? Whereas the original Holly is more guilty. So I was like, it's the original, but no.
I think the replica wants to live more than the original did.
Yeah.
I think the original is super crazy. It is not making rational decisions.
Well, I mean, I agree with that statement too.
I never got over the fact that she carved the guy's face. Like, I'm like, the whole time I'm saying that, I'm like, that's not, even like if you had a rational reason to kill someone, that is not a rational decision to then carve their
She went
face.
Full unhinged, and it's like...
Yeah.
At least it was post-mortem.
Did I bleed?
Can we just talk about when PR Holly confronted Jill Preston, where she's like, no, I have nothing to lose, and I don't care.
I'm going to die in 24 hours.
I was like, that was intense. And like... I just loved the character struggle of like, I'm enjoying this. I really shouldn't be enjoying this though, but it's like, whatever. And it's like, damn, that was a good scene. I really liked that.
That was one of my favorite scenes. Is just most enjoyable. Like,
and
that was good.
And there's another ambiguity with at least how society will go after this, because Jill Preston, this leader of this terrorist icon group, well, actually maybe not even a terrorist group, right? Because Jill Preston's like, oh yeah, you saw some audio recordings of us doing things. The government very easily could have just fabricated that, and that's totally true. That's entirely possible.
Holly is a little bit naive, when she's like, oh, but the government can't access our memories, and all of us sitting here in like our current social media state of like always being surveilled are like, when
Skylar was like, no, we can't do that because of laws and rules. I was like, oh yes, those things that definitely stop governments doing stuff. Yeah, there is a totally stopping you.
Oh no, they definitely.
Yeah, Mr. Government Man. Okay.
Like, I guess I trusted Skylar the entire time. Like, I don't think Skylar is a bad guy.
I think Skylar believes what he says.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll give you
difference. There's a difference between Skylar and the government that Skylar represents, right?
Yes.
I had a different read. Interesting.
I will say as well, when you say you might trusted Skylar, I was expecting when there's the editing thing of the clone where she was edited to have like all this muscle memory, and then they edited her to like enjoy violence, or he wasn't. She thought that, but they didn't.
They did not do that.
But then when they started talking about memory manipulation, I was kind of like, man, can we trust anything that anyone says?
That moment.
Because I'm like, she's saying, oh yeah, PR's a totally a normal thing that like sometimes happens. I'm like, has she just been edited to think that that's a normal thing that happens and is something else going on entirely?
Absolutely nothing
where
about
it goes
what he thinks is true is trustworthy. I have this whole thing about, I want to talk about like the twist again later with the whole memory modification, but also with the whole thing about trusting Skylar. It was like my vibe was that like Skylar genuinely does, he is trustworthy as far as like Replica Holly is concerned. I think he genuinely was looking out for her, but I also like got this vibe of like, he knows the truth, but he can't say it on record. And you know, it's sort of like when Replica Holly is 4 days to live, it's not the time to get into all of this. Like I always got the feeling that Skylar knows, like, you know, and, you know, is not being totally upfront about like, oh yeah, we definitely can't touch your memories. Absolutely not. We would never like change you as a person. You know, I got the feeling like he was saying the party line, you know, but also like maybe he's a government agent and has been for a while. Like maybe he knows, but like, because I think he really was looking out for Replica Holly. I never really felt like, I never thought like the twist was going to be that he was evil and was like manipulating her the whole time.
He works in the provisional replica department. He doesn't work in the memory manipulation department. You know, it's sort of like he knows how things really are, but he just can't say it out loud. Kind of.
The moment we found out like he was a provisional replica was when like my opinion of him like instantly like, okay, I trust you.
Did you guys not think he was from the beginning?
No, I wasn't not at all.
The moment he said like, oh, you like, we need to tell her the truth, that was like, oh, he's a provisional replica, like that's why he's saying this, is because like he's a provisional replica himself. Like I thought that was the moment, like we're telling the audience now, oh, he's one too, and like, you know, and he's going to be your replica mentor like in this process. I thought that was the giveaway. It
didn't occur to me because I assumed they got rid of the replicas once they were done with their job.
Well, that's true. At that stage, you don't know that.
I was not trusting anything anyone was saying to her.
I just assumed he was decent. Like, yeah, we should know.
Well, and he could have just like worked in the PR department and like not be a PR himself and like wanted to tell her the truth on things. Like, I think that makes sense for him to say.
Oh, sure, it makes sense. I genuinely thought that was the moment of like, we're telling the audience now he's also one, and I turned out to be right. So like when they said it later, I'm like, yeah, Holly, get it together. It's like, you're so naive. Like you should have like follow along here.
I have a hot take about Skylar as this conversation is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think Skylar does totally believe what he's saying about the government, probably because. When you're a cop, you probably have to deal with government BS all the time, right? Like, and his annoyance about things seemed pretty realistic. It's like, yeah, we can't monitor this, and he didn't seem thrilled about it, you know? But here's the hot take. What if, because he's a PR, he could be edited as to inherently trust the government more? That's an entirely reasonable thing that could have happened, right?
So they go into it a little bit, but they generally only choose PRs that would react favorably to what happened.
Yeah, right.
That aren't going to go rogue. Yeah.
That are generally good people. Yeah.
And like would potentially, because like a lot of PRs, the impression I got was a lot of PRs do end up working for the government because they can't do what they used to anymore.
No,
like,
of course not.
You know what gets me about the scene where she's like, was I edited to be violent?
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't say we can't do that. He says we didn't do that.
yeah, that's true.
Oh, I've got one last question about Skylar, guys.
Ooh,
What kind of knife do you think his nose looks like?
Orange carving knife.
Nice.
oh my god!
Speaking of orange carving knives, like I was not prepared for someone to be so into carving oranges, but certainly the way it's written is like,
There's
yeah, this person is
dragon
really
fruit.
interested in carving oranges. So
I
yeah.
was
Carving
well up,
dragon
like,
fruit, I
learning
bet
this.
you. I think carving fruit is like a whole art form. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when they were talking about like things being ephemeral, but like they're real.
Right.
It's sort of like that's like such like a low key, really good like world building moment of just like when you dive into not just like what exists in the world, but like how the people in that world think. I'm like, yeah, of course people would be into like all this random stuff like carving fruit because they don't need real jobs to survive.
It's true.
You know,
Yeah.
like they can do literally whatever they want with their time. And you know what people are interested in is like the things that you can really touch and eat. You know, like the things that you eat, you know, are for real. Like a bunch of times we're told that the only things with real color in the rooms is like the food, like especially the oranges, but like
Yeah, but
I
they can
didn't pick
still
up on
print
that.
food though.
they can still
Yeah.
print food, but like like you
They
know
can't
we get
theme
like this
food.
whole we get this whole thing about like the oranges are real. You know,
Yeah.
like the dragon fruit is real.
Right.
So like it's this whole point of contention about like their art would be instead of like it's not just food to them anymore. It's now something when it's something tangible with real taste that has real color that didn't come
Yeah.
from your theme. It's like wow, like this is like of course they would think like this.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I don't know how many of them are going to go into right now because I think I can talk about this for like at least half an hour.
Yeah.
Great.
But
Welcome
some
to the
of-
Evgeni talking half hour.
Tune in 25 minutes when I let other people speak.
Oh, well, I'll
We'll
interrupt
put
you.
timestamp below to skip Evgeni.
So, some things of note. Fruit carving is a big deal there, or at least it is in Holly circles, because she has a friend who is into dragon fruit carving,
Mhm.
and like she meets her in the forest. I'm doing a lot of air quotes here because
We
what is
got to
real,
talk
right?
about that scene.
The forest seal. Oh my god.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have-
we'll
we do.
get there. We'll
We
get
will.
there.
We will.
We'll get there. But she meets her there, and she is talking about how this other person that she knows is doing, I think, like carrot sculptures or carrot carving or something like that. So, like, there's a theme here. There is like people, at least in Holly's circle of like friends or acquaintances, like that's their thing, that's their hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, because you don't need to work, you can use your time to do whatever you want, and that's why John was such a big deal because he had a real job. Like
Right.
he wasn't just pulling
Yeah.
his like
Stipend.
government,
Yeah.
allowance or whatever. So that's point number one. Point number two: there's a huge theme in the entire book about what is real and what is not, and it shows up everywhere all the time. Right. Obviously, the most kind of clear depiction of this is PR Holly contrasting the kind of very bland white world that she's now living in versus all the vibrant and colorful and extravagant, in some cases, themes that everyone else around her is experiencing. And so that's one point where what is real comes into. I think both of the hotels that she checks in have this kind of vintage vibe to them, and so does the restaurant where she gets taken to when she gets kidnapped from the market. And she makes some remarks along the lines of how it is very uncanny valley to be in this place where she got a little bit used to seeing everything as bland white surfaces, but now she's seeing real things, like real doorknobs that are polished to the point where they would look like they belong to a theme, but they are real, and things like that. Obviously, there is a bit at the end where PR Holly and original Holly are in the gallery, and they have a brief conversation about art. And in fact, one of the very first lines that they say to one another is, PR Holly, when she feels the gun of original Holly at her head, asks, "Can real emotions be generated by something fake?" Which is obviously like a little bit of foreshadowing, a little bit of setup for the later reveal. Later reveal that Jonathan was in some ways fake, but also in some ways real, and the emotions that both original Holly and PR Holly were feeling, were they real? Were they valid? Were they edited into them as original Holly suspects? And there are other remarks here and there, but like we don't need to go through my full list of notes too.
I think one thing that I've been thinking about, which I feel like is made clear at the beginning and then added ambiguity near the end, especially with the reveal of Jonathan being a PR, is the artist with the clay. The artist with the clay, right? They have this plot of clay, and they shape into something, and you get to mess with your hands, and then they make it back. And then she like touches Jonathan's nose with a bit of clay and says, "Look, you're real too." But he's not.
That is actually really funny. Yeah.
Is the clay real? And then I'm like, was that just a real bit of clever theming? Like, is the art supposed to be? Was the art installation like, oh, here's this real clay that you can do with your hands, but it's actually a theme, and it's a, which one?
I think the clay was definitely real. I think that was part of the point.
I don't know. Like I said, I think it could go either way at this point because.
Based on like the forest scene, I'm like, that one was so just based on like how, like, if you like to get to the point of like theming in sensations, I'm like, yes, I do think the clay was real, but I also think there's like things like that in the world that are not. So I think like people could turn off their themes to check the clay, like that kind of thing. Like just
I thought that. But there's a line early on where she says that it's never even occurred to Holly to turn off her theming. She's never seen the world as it actually is because it's never even occurred to her.
I figure like they probably I mean in the sense of like they could probably like have this like notarized and sourced like someone like someone verified the realness of this clay.
She does turn it off at one point when she's a teenager. Like that's how she knows what the renewal stations actually look like, which is like white cubicles. So they have the ability. They just for the most part they don't do that. But on that scene with the clay, it's interesting because when I was doing a real listen of this, I noticed that Holly marks him and says, "Hey, now you're real," and he frowns and doesn't answer.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I really wish I could just scroll back. Like, the audiobook is great, but I do wish I could have a text version to reference. That'd be real nice.
We love having references here on Shard.
And Coppermine stuff. But Evgeni actually re-listened to it. So that's really nice because we procrastinated recording this.
I was like, why did you take notes? And now I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you took notes.
there are some interesting things that I noticed on a re-listen.
That's really nice because I imagine PR Jonathan is struggling with a lot of similar things that PR Holly was struggling with, right?
To follow up on that, when this is revealed to us as listeners is when Holly is in the hospital bed and the doctor there is asking her, "What is the last thing you remember?" And it is not conclusive, but it sounds like the very last thing she remembers is her doing the clay thing and then saying, "Hey, you're real," and then he frowns and doesn't answer. And so part of me wonders, is this kind of the inciting incident where she goes and confronts, PR Jonathan?
I believe we know it was that night they confronted, I think, or if it was very soon after. I'm sure he says something like that.
Now I'm just confused on the timeline.
Yes, this is one of my major complaints of the book. I have actually one major complaint, and it bothered me the entire book, and it was never resolved. How much time was there between the party that she remembers, the last thing she remembers, and the murder? It's it's established there's a few weeks between the murder and her being revived as a PR, but she's never told how much time is between the party and the murder. And that to me would be, if I'm hunting down a self that I don't know, essentially a me from the future, like however many days, weeks, months, how much time between the last thing I remember and the murder would be super important information. Because she's all like, oh, I don't know this terrorist group. Well, I'm like, well, how long was there between the murder and you not knowing the terrorist group? Because if it was like a day, then yes, that's fair enough. You didn't know this group. If it was like 6 months, then like, how you could have joined this terrorist group in 6 months. And it was she never even asked, like in her head, I wonder how long. And it felt like a really glaring omission because it would be super relevant to her investigation.
The thing I'm confused about is, when do your memories get backed up? Isn't that at a renewal station? So wouldn't you remember a renewal
introduced
station?
At the beginning.
She
says that at the beginning.
Bothered by this discrepancy because of the later reveals of how much the government was involved in her husband's death and replacement. I can see this being part of the cover-up. Like, I just assumed that the original Holly had been to a renewal station after the party, but before the murder confrontation.
I guess that's how it has to be, right?
But then they edited out some of her suspicions, basically everything after the party that like led to her going, I think this is a fake Jonathan. So
important. Original Holly says she confronts Jonathan at the party about him being.
Oh, okay.
At the party. Oh,
yes.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for notes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. So then they go home and then she murders him.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
But how did she get to a renewal station?
Then how did she get the memories of the party?
Yeah.
Then?
Right?
So the timeline, the timeline
valid.
The timeline doesn't work out, and the fact that it wasn't just the fact it's not explained. It's also she never questions it as well, which is my other major issue. It's like a twofold problem.
It does sound like she might have been edited.
Yeah.
But how would they even know about the party then? I mean,
well, they can see, like, let's say she goes to the party with Jonathan and she confronts him there. They're like, okay, but we'll talk about it later or whatever. And so let's say a day or two later, she goes into a renewal station. And so her memory up until that point are uploaded. And then let's say a couple of days after that or whatever, she snaps, kills PR Jonathan, checks out, goes off the grid, and so on. And a few weeks later, like they have the whole trial thing and they requisition a provisional replica. What if they edit? Because they can see her memories, right?
Yeah.
What if they edit essentially everything from the point where she confronts Jonathan at the party until later? Well, until the visit to the renewal station.
Yeah.
That's what I edit all that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you were going for. So they lead that segment, which we know they can hypothetically do because of the backdoor that Jonathan discovered, right? Mm-hmm. So the immediate question then becomes is, why would they do that? And there is this idea that PR Holly has at one point that, hey, what if the government is like engineering this entire situation so they can send me in a place where they can't send official people, which is the commons, which is the base of operation of Icon.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's more, because she later on dismisses that idea because it's just too convoluted. Mm-hmm. But what if there's some truth to it?
Yeah.
Because if the government is editing her memories, then they know everything that original Holly would have known, right? So they know that, obviously they know that Jonathan was a PR. Obviously they know that original Holly confronted him about it, so she also knew that. If they create a provisional replica with that knowledge,
would that PR be the risk-free hunter that they need her to be?
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. It's like they couldn't have PR Holly have the realizations that original Holly had.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would defeat the purpose of the PR.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, it had to be the original Holly, not crazy original Holly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
That's what I was going for, just the short form. So
I have a question, Evgeni. So earlier you said it's like, oh, original Holly confronted Jonathan at the party. So that doesn't mean Holly murdered Jonathan later that night.
Correct. It doesn't mean that.
Okay. Great.
yeah,
She
it could be
did-
like, we talked about it, we yelled, I stewed on it for a few days until it broke me, or something.
Yeah.
Like
That makes more sense. All right. That's how it has to be, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say,
unless there's something really weird where she like, but I don't see how this can work in the timeline, right? Because she has to like, so for this to work the way it is presented, she has to be at the party. She then has to go to a renewal station mid-party, and then go back to the party and confront Jonathan about his status as a PR.
Look, I want to feel good with my nanites as I murder my not husband, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I do think it was a case of they edited out everything that would have made her question the government up until that point, basically. So they edited out the realization, they edited out the questioning of Jonathan. Because the other thing as well, her theory about whether they just made her to like be an assassin that can go into the places government agents can't go into. Is it Julia? Is her name the ex-senator?
I hear
Jill,
Joe, but it was Jill.
It was Jill.
Yeah.
It was
Didn't she say?
Jill.
She said that Holly isn't the first PR they've sent after her, right?
Yeah.
Which
or
makes
maybe
me
not
think
the first assassin. I'm not sure if she says PR.
Yeah. And so that makes me think that there's probably a huge validity to that theory that the government just says, oh yeah, go kill your original. Also, whilst you're at it, can you do these things for us, please? Thank you.
This is the thing about the short story form, which is like, again, like you said at the beginning, Ben, very popular for like these little sci-fi ideas.
Yeah.
Like the kind of stories we read in high school, like Dispelt, or like
it's like the Asimov stuff, or like the Ray Bradbury stuff. Like the really short is one single idea.
It's like this is 2 pages, but all of a sudden your brain explodes. But like the thing is, like, my brain is like so used to the long form. I kept like expecting like the plot, and now here's where she turns against the government and finds out it's all a lie, and then her and Skylar like append everything, and society is broken apart. I'm just like, it's a short story.
This was one of my other issues with it. Me about how too many ideas not explored enough was, I think the PR memory stuff was far more interesting than the theming stuff. But the theming stuff was,
I think they're entwined. Like I feel like,
I don't know, they seem like
the theme of the story. Just sorry they did it like this.
The theme of the original, like every time we say theme or original,
it requires both pieces to like really dovetail together the way it did.
They do meld together nicely about arguing about what's real and what's not, but I don't know, I felt like we spent so much time on the theming, which was a less interesting idea to me than
I loved the theming stuff, because it's sort of, the entire thing hinges on the fact that they're not living in something that's real. Like that's like, I think that without that background, like the character decisions don't make as much sense. Like if theming wasn't in this story, like would Holly's reaction to like the fake Jonathan have been as strong? Like, would she have thought of him as fake as she does? If this whole concept about theming is there, because it's sort of like the clay at the beginning wouldn't have been an emotional and powerful experience for them if they didn't know that they're living in something fake. It's like I just can't I can't emotionally separate them, and it's like the shock and horror that she feels as she goes through all these places that she loved, is like, that's, you need that little background shock and horror in order to understand why original Holly snapped.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think just because there's like the whole concept of creating clones raises a whole host of ethical questions that you could spend, which have been explored to death by lots of other things.
Lots of things.
Lots of things. And so, like, but creating a clone specifically to kill your previous self is, it's kind of the unique selling point of this book. And so I feel like that alone produces a lot of ethical questions that could have been asked that just weren't brought up.
They weren't.
And so, whilst yes, for the story, they worked together. But as ideas to be explored, I feel like I just wanted more from like the clone stuff. I don't know. I like clone stuff.
I think like getting into the mindset of like this is a short story really changes like the expectations of scope. So it's sort of like I got a lot out of the implications of what Holly was thinking. With the whole thing in the first couple chapters, the first 20 minutes or so, where Holly is talking about how Jonathan's family, he has like a do not resuscitate, but let's get to really a do not replicate.
DNR.
I mean, they say do not replicate.
Yeah, he has a do not replicate order, but she is totally fine with it. Like there's a lot of implications, on how Holly thinks of what is real and how Holly thinks of replicas and how like she has her own cognitive dissonance, like between what she thinks of it, when she recalls that memory versus how the original Holly snapped, because like the cognitive dissonance, she didn't really think that replicas were real when it came down to it. It's just like with a short story, I think you really have to read into the implications and not have things spelled out as much. So it's sort of like I think there's really a lot to read into for what the characters take for granted.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot to say on like the Jill, the ex-senator, when she checks out and like apparently. So this is kind of going completely off onto another direction. We're going to go off another tangent. Okay, so before Jill, what was her name? Jill Stein?
No.
Jill Preston.
No?
Preston.
Jill Preston. Where did I get Stein from?
That's an American. That was a candidate in 2016, Ben.
Cool. Well, there you go. That's right.
That's where you got Jill Stein.
So Jill Preston was a senator, and even though they're not a U.S. government anymore, it's the One World government, which is a whole other thing. And so she was a senator for this One World government, and when she checked out, she wasn't able, from the sounds of things, she wasn't able to continue being in this powerful position in the government. She had to, when you check out, you can't continue to live in this white wall society. You have to leave society. And I was like, there's an implication there that you have to be checked in to operate in society. And it kind of like, I've had discussions with people on this on Discord, and the problem is we just didn't get enough in the story about certain things where it's like, oh, can you operate in society while checked out? Is that something you're allowed to do?
So
it's just never explored, but like the idea is there.
There is a little bit of exploration, actually, and it is just a nugget in one of Jonathan's talks that PR Holly watches, and he talks about how he acknowledges that there are concerns with PRs, and there are not with PRs. I'm sorry, with checkouts and with theming specifically, and how there are religions that frown upon any kind of body modification, which nanites is. And so he says, well, we've worked around some of these things, right? And so he says, we've got earbuds and goggles. And the implication is, well, if you don't want nanites that interface directly with your brain and eyes to like produce a theme around the world, but you still want to interact in a similar way to how themed people, like checked in people, nanite infused people, then you can kind of fake that.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah.
And you can have earbuds, and they produce a theme for you, but they don't they're not
internal modifications. Yeah.
Yep. So you are still allowed to do some of that. You still get your like the free buddy that the government gives you, because when Holly pretends to be a checkout to infiltrate the commons, she tells them that, hey, I still got that. and they tell her, "Oh no, that's just another way that they can track you." And so
they're not. It's not that they've been cut off from it. It's just that they choose not to take it. Yeah.
Some of them do. Yeah.
There's like it's a checkout compound, but it's like I didn't get the implication that, you know, like this is where all checkouts must go. This is like this is for when people are like fed up with society and they're like they don't know what to do, and I'm going to go find other people who have been fed up like me. And
it's not a lunches.
It's sort of like they don't really get the choice, is, you know, for how they can interact with the world. Like maybe some people would really still like the nanites, but they don't want it to be under government control, which I'm like, okay. Yeah, that's kind of like that was my read on it. It was like, oh, some people, they don't want the nanites in government control because it's all controlled by the government, and it's you're not allowed to operate
that is icon specifically. That's not all.
Yes, icon specific. Yeah, not all checkouts. That's icon specifically. Yeah.
Going off your comment, Ben, about theming versus the memories, you are kind of right though that the memory stuff isn't explored as much. So I see your point there. I do think though that the theming did really add to the sense that the world was very fake. Right, like with the forest scene, right? That really gets you to feel that like the government theming controls a lot, and I think that adds to the setting.
I find
right?
that scene absolutely horrifying.
Even past the horror of like there's people like going around here like, oh,
everywhere.
They think they're totally in privacy, but I can see them, and this is where you know it's Mary Robinette. You know, it's like that's where you know it's not Brandon.
I don't know about that necessarily. I don't know.
But like even like what also comes up in the forest scene is like when you have a theme on, the government picks the path that you walk on throughout the day. You know, it's like it goes so deep. It's not even just it hides you from other people and like there's this your fake privacy. You know,
it's actively manipulating what you're doing, like as you're going about your day. Like,
and part of it is in this specific case, literally just so you don't physically bump into other people, right? But obviously the implications go way, way beyond that.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess the distinction for me, this is definitely where the book started edging into dystopia for me.
Absolutely. I was kind of already like on the edge, and then the forest scene happened. I'm like, no, this is a dystopia. This is.
But it's like the question I would have is like, is there like an actual person running the mapping of those paths and like a person actively manipulating someone?
Is it like traffic light engineers?
Algorithm?
Is it like traffic light engineering? Like the people who do that, you know, like
I think it's just some kind of soft AI running somewhere, like some algorithm.
Yeah, because like if there was a person involved, I find that way more dystopian than if it's like just a computer program.
There'd be people involved somewhere, and like whoever it is,
people have to build the algorithm and figure out. You know, it's like they probably have test cases, and they probably have to run tests and like check out how it's working, and just say, you know, if they want to improve this program to be like, we have to make sure people don't bump into each other or see each other or hear each other.
Whoever's in charge of the default theme, whoever's in charge of the default theme holds all the keys to all the
department.
The
department. Not the person. It's like one person can't program all this. You probably have hundreds of people in like per city who have access to all this information.
Well, at this level of technology, there is a very real possibility that you have software that can write software.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Which is something we are kind of beginning to approach right now. Like Microsoft is trying to do something like that, but it's like we are very far away from that. It's conceptually we can do super basic things, but we're not at the point where we can do that. But in a century or two, who knows?
Yeah. We as readers can't separate the idea that there's like a human involved.
Yeah.
Because like all of our technology is like technology person. Like it's like there's no separation. There's no degree of separation. So it's like the automatic trust that Holly had for the system, not like the system meaning like the government, but the system of like machines that keep their lives like that was like,
it's kind of it reminds me of like, as an example of something that everyone knows is like the YouTube algorithm, right? Is one of those things where when YouTube say we actually don't know how the algorithm works, I believe them. Because that's how machine learning AIs work. Is they're a black box that you throw goals at, and then it works out how to get those goals. And doesn't really. It gets really complicated. But like at the end of the day, nowadays, there's still a person setting those goals or setting the metrics that the AI judges itself by. But
there's still people that we email and yell at to be like,
exactly. There's still people.
Not really with Google,
and they can,
but
you're in control of
not really with Google,
and it did something bad, fix it.
But then they can also like promote certain things because they have, they do have control. They just don't understand.
As the actual programmer on the podcast,
thank you.
I've written some code in my time. Thank you very much.
A lot of what you said is accurate, right? And I agree that this is how things work right now. The way I would probably summarize this is to say that the way the world of the original probably works is that there are still people who are kind of initiating the entire, hey, we need a program to do this thing, right? And so once they initiate the process, the program probably learns, like the AI probably learns whatever objectives it needs to learn. And in that sense, it is not malicious. It is studying like phenomena and like patterns and people behaviors. And like in the forest scene, it is probably studying the way people walk and how they like where they want to go and things like that. But I think there is still plenty of room for somebody, like for a person to have access to this and say, no, actually, let's on this day or in this one case, let's do this other thing. Like there's a manual override, or at least there's the opportunity for a manual override. And that's where we hit hard dystopia.
That's the impression I got.
Yeah. It's there seems to be like there's like the default theme, but it seems people can add their own thing to the default theme. Like that person with the Italian restaurant, he themed his restaurant after the Italian restaurant kind of thing.
I believe it's Olive Garden.
That's what I thought, but they said it was something else. But it wasn't called Olive Garden.
No, they never mentioned, because of course they can't mention Olive Garden.
Yeah, but my impression was Olive Garden as well. Yeah, I thought it was Olive Garden too.
Oh, I should re-listen to that part. Oh, that's so funny.
But with the forest scene, like it's not inherently malicious to want to try and maximize space to maximize people's happiness. Like that, it's creepy, right? But like the goals there are like, if there are a lot of people, if there are tons of people that are immortal, right? Like you're gonna have a lot of people if you're all immortal now, right?
It's like, like we have this problem. Like some people who live in cities are like, oh, I don't want to actually live in a city. I just have to be here for work. I wish I lived like somewhere like with less people, and that like I felt like I had real privacy. Like the goal itself is not bad. It's like I understand why they made this decision for it to be like that. Like it's like they're really trying to add like positive to someone's life, but like the moment you strip it away, it's like there is like this moment of horror. Like it's not, the horror isn't erased just because she lives in that society. Like it's like she's still a human, and like the idea that she could like literally be walking by a person right here and not know it is like, the downside shows itself. It's like the creepiness factor is a real, it's a real negative. It isn't just like, oh, that's creepy, but at least the goal was good. Like,
I do agree with that. Don't get me wrong.
Like, because it's like, it's only creepy if you know about it.
Don't see how the sausage is made.
About it, it's creepy.
Don't look at the sausage.
I think the creepiness factor actually comes from the fact that they didn't know it and now they know it.
Yeah.
If you sign a waiver and you're like, this is just the way it is, like I think that's less creepy. It's sort of like you technically know that happens, but what happens is they found out that this was happening and they didn't know about it. They didn't exactly consent to it. It was the horror comes from the fact that you didn't know it before.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why the point I was making earlier about how they don't even think to turn off their theming to chat.
Even Jonathan.
It's like, it's one of those things like I just get the impression to them having your theme always on, like they're like, why would I turn it off? You know, it's just
life.
Yeah.
That is, that's
just what their life is. Yeah, I've just always had it on. Why would I turn it off?
Yeah.
All of this touches on a couple of like very big, very important, themes, conversations
themes.
for which they're not original to the original.
We're having so much fun.
Help, we're trapped here and we're making puns. Save us.
And they're not original
Oh, no.
puns.
We're trapped in the
Originally they were.
sarcasm.
Oh, God.
Anyway, so these things. So what I was getting at is that these are concepts that exist in our world, and that like people are talking philosophically in our world, and they're touching on ideas such as, well, how much can you trust your senses, right?
Yeah.
Because we perceive reality through our senses, but one, we don't know whether, like, the whole, is the blue that I see the blue that you see, right? We see a thing and we both call that thing blue, but we don't actually know whether we see the same thing.
Yeah.
And this extends to like all of the senses. Another big topic is, and I'm sure this is one of the things that Ian wants to talk about later on when we talk about connections with other works of Brandon, but if everything you perceive is simulated, such as in the world of the perfect state, then is that reality still reality? Do you live in this reality? How, like, what do you think about that, right? And then there is the concept of who are you as a person, right? Are you your memories? Are you a soul with memories? Are they separate things? Are they combined in one? And we are starting to talk about this as we talk about like uploading people to computers and stuff like that. If you were uploaded to a computer, would the entity that gets uploaded be you? If you were uploaded to a clone, would the entity that exists still be you, right?
Yeah.
Is there more there? What happens if someone somehow messes with your memories? Are you still you? What defines your personality? Because a lot of people say that your personality is strongly dictated by like your past experience, but it's not by your past experience, isn't it? It's by your memory of your past experience.
Yeah.
Right. So memory is a huge deal.
That actually reminds me of like Star Trek has transporters.
Teleportation.
Yeah. And so it's like, is the person, because it's like you go into the transporter, like it reads your pattern, and then like that body is disintegrated. And then elsewhere, there is a new body based off of your pattern that is reconstructed.
Identical.
Not using the same, but not using like the exact atoms because they're in a completely different location.
Yep.
Is that the same person, or did the original die and the replica live?
I think there's several episodes about that, actually.
This is all like, do people have souls? You know, it's because it's sort of like, I don't, you know, for me, it's like, I don't think it's me if I'm not literally the person looking out of the eyes and feeling the things and thinking the things. And, you know, like the experience of being me is the fact that I'm getting like the sensory input and and having the experience right now. And if someone who looked like me and had the same memories as me, I'm not literally looking out of their eyes and experiencing. And if I tap them, I won't feel it. You know, it's sort of like, so I'm like, oh, that's not me. This is the meanness, is like not necessarily the body, but like the fact that I am living. This is. I need to. We need different vocabulary.
Yeah,
I think therefore I am.
This is deep stuff here.
This is like, and what I like about these kinds of stories is that like I don't think these things should be explored enough to try and have an answer. I kind of have this. I like the holistic view of like, this is just another person in the whole conversation of like the people asking these questions and exploring these in stories and like bringing up like another point of view in the whole conversation of what it means to be a person. And, you know, like I enjoy that it doesn't necessarily, I enjoy that it doesn't try to answer the question.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I do think this could have been a longer story very easily and like asked even more questions or like brought up some more things. But what it was, it's like I appreciate what it brought to the table. This is another point of view in the whole conversation of what it means to be real.
Yeah.
And like I understand why it's so short.
Yeah.
Because Brandon can't write another 4-book series.
Can't remember who I said this to, but I said if this story was any longer, it would just be Altered Carbon. So, like, I think it was the it needed to be.
Can we talk about like the twist with why Holly original killed her husband?
Yeah, sure.
I did any of you guys see it coming, like what it was going to be?
I don't think so. I don't think I gave it much thought. I just went along with the story.
I almost thought I
had a very strong idea. I thought it was I thought for sure it was going to be something else, but then it turned out to be that Jonathan died and like was replaced with his provisional replica, which is a unique provisional replica. You know, it was for a different purpose. But I for sure thought I thought this was going to be like the exploration of like bringing up the whole memory modification thing that Ben thought was like not explored enough. It's sort of like they brought it up and I was like, oh, this is going to be part of like why she killed him. I was like, oh, she carved in liar. Jonathan modified the original's memory in order, like, you know, in order to like make her love him.
I said that for a little while.
I was like, she never actually really like instinctively, naturally loved him. It's sort of like he did this to her. And like, that's for sure where I thought this was going. Like, you know, theory, just, I was like, I like the light horror. I'm not a big horror fan, but I like the, I like the conceptual creepy horror stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely what's going to happen. And then I was like, and I was like, that, like, you know, like that's why like she could totally turn on someone that she loved so deeply if she found out that the love was fake, you know. You know, it was like, and I think that could have worked with the themes of the story, but
I think I think that one occurred to me, and I think the other one that I kind of was focused on a lot was I thought maybe her theming went haywire, and she like thought he was an orange or something, and I was like, did someone mess with it? Like, did the terrorist group like mess with her theming so that like she killed him? Or then like saw them as good guys or something. I'm like,
maybe the government decided to actually kill him because like he wasn't giving up the memory modification.
Yeah, like I thought it was something like the government wanted Holly to kill him for some reason. Like that's kind of where my brain was going with more the government conspiracy aspect, but that she still did it.
Yeah, I think I assumed that. I didn't think much of it because in a 4-hour story, I'm not going to waste time
theorizing midway through.
I think I assumed that she just found out that the job that Jonathan was doing was actually not his real job. Like he was doing some secret government stuff, some dark stuff, things like that. I guess it could have worked with Wei if she finds out that he has found out about the backdoor and is thinking that he is abusing that in some way. So I figured she just found out that he was a big lie.
So the backdoor is to unlock the memory encryption because it's normally encrypted, right? So it's a backdoor to that encryption.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't know, for us, it's like, it's a big shock to someone who's living in that world. But it's like, for us, it's like, yeah, of course your security has a backdoor.
Yeah.
Like,
if they think they have one immutable right to their memories and then that's violated, that's going to be like, yeah, that's like the one thing they had left in terms of privacy. And it's gone now.
Yeah.
I do want to, and we don't need to do this right now, but I do want to touch on like just a few miscellaneous points from here and there. There's a lot of new tech that is introduced in this place. There's like the teletrees and the skimmers and the biolocks, which I think is cool. Like I would expect a future society to have these things.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I do like particularly that Holly's and Jonathan's apartment is themed, like physically themed around a like early 21st century type of stuff. I think that gives it a nice opportunity to like ground the reader.
Yeah.
Late 20-teens.
I wonder why they chose that time period.
Awfully convenient.
It is.
One thing that I learned on my re-listen that I just didn't pay attention to on the first time around is so the sculpture or the replica of the sculpture that they have in the apartment that the original Holly uses to bash PR Jonathan's brains out is actually a real thing. It's not something they made up for the story. It is called The Kiss. It is by a French sculptor. Well, the original is by a French sculptor. Obviously, Holly and Jonathan have a replica of that.
The original?
Yeah.
Was it a Rodin or no?
Yeah, it was Rodin.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I've heard of him.
Okay.
And the actual sculpture is so if you listeners and viewers, if you want to look it up, it's called The Kiss by Rodin, and you can find that. And it depicts an embracing nude couple originally appearing in a monumental bronze portal as a relief called The Gates of Hell.
That sounds nice.
Eventually was replaced by another relief in there. And the story of the piece is that the woman depicted there, Francesca de Ramini, fell in love with her husband's younger brother. And the story of the piece is that the husband walks in on them being, nude and making out, except their lips don't actually touch.
Are you kidding me? Right. Has Brandon managed to fit in another love triangle with two brothers in his book? In this, oh God damn it, Brandon! You couldn't go one book, could you?
Incoming Skyward Love Triangle, book 3.
I mean, in a way, PR Jonathan is original.
Yeah.
Younger
It's already in there.
twin.
Yeah. And so I thought there was like, it doesn't have to be like thematic foreshadowing and stuff like that.
He's kind of a theme, though.
But it's kind of a thing.
That's intentionally chosen, right?
Yeah.
The fact
I
that
think
like
it is.
they picked a specific statue.
I never would have guessed that.
Statue. Yeah.
I'm so little.
Yeah.
of an artist.
And I kept an eye or ear out for a lot of like other real world references that I can maybe use to like either tie themes and motifs to specific real world things or like places, so I can narrow down to like where the story is taking place. And I had a moment where I felt, hey, maybe it's Chicago because Mary Robinette is from Chicago, and there is this St. Andrew's Church that actually exists in Chicago, but also exists in like everywhere else.
Yeah. St. Andrew, kind of a popular saint.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
Patron saint of Scotland.
Yeah.
There was other architecture that I found, and some of it could be tied to Chicago, but that could be because Google is like ranking Chicago locations higher for me than other locations.
The mysterious algorithm.
But I couldn't tie it down to a specific location because like the forest is the Washington Park, and that could be
Yeah, I
anywhere.
think I placed it in like Washington State, like West Coast, because like I want to say at some point Cascadia is mentioned.
It is. It is. Yeah. So it's probably Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that.
She does go to a fish market, and there is one of those in Seattle.
Oh,
See, I know things about the US
more than
too.
a few, in fact. But one famous one for sure.
I don't know enough about the states.
So Cascadia there's the Cascade Mountains in the Pacific Northwest, and I think someone tried to like say, hey, what if we just like make one state and call it Cascadia? That proposal obviously didn't go anywhere, as those usually do.
I like that name though. That's cool.
Yeah, no. So I
That's nice.
remember hearing that, but totally forgot it. So thanks, Ian. That's good.
That's why I'm here.
Yep.
I do want to.
Yeah,
I do want to ask a. I want to ask a question for everyone, because this is, after all, still Shardcast.
Yep.
And we may not be able to theorize about the Cosmere, but there are things we can theorize about, and that is nanites and theming. Specifically, it is very fascinating and very confusing to me how themes actually work, right? Specifically, obviously, you get like a nanite infusion or injection, and they're probably in your bloodstream, and as they hit your brain, they do like some manipulation, so your senses are deceived into seeing or like perceiving things that are like different or not there or whatever. And there is probably software somewhere that it's talking.
It's like an internet, you know.
A little bit, yeah. And there is the whole authentication thing where your nanites can like interface with another person's nanites, so that regardless of how the two of you present yourselves, you still know that this is the other person. The bit that is weird to me is the whole Holly touching people and like getting their theme.
That part is just plot convenience, honestly.
Yeah, I figured that was a special PR thing.
Well, I don't know about that.
I think everyone can do it. I kind of got the vibe that she could do that in her old life. Was like just to see you can kind of see what other people's themes are.
Wasn't there? Didn't she say at the very beginning?
No, I was just about to say in other sci-fi properties, nanites are just magic. Like Stargate.
Yeah,
Stargate is like whatever. Nanites, you can do anything.
Yeah, basically.
When she goes to the commons, one of the things they do, like one of the checkouts there brushes against her, presumably to see whether she picks up on a theme. Yeah. So it's not a PR thing; it's a non-nanite thing.
I think at the beginning, not Skylar, but one of the other people in the room, like moves something on the desk that isn't there, and Holly makes a comment about how it's rude that she's not sharing her theme.
Yep.
So I think it's like something that you have set on yourself. Is you have your theme set to share, and then when people are near you,
your nanites can like have their Bluetooth enabled, and
and so people. When you move something on the desk, it doesn't look like you're not doing anything. It's like, oh yeah, you're moving like a ball that was on the desk or something.
I feel like there was a reference to like some sort of internet-y thing.
Because like she does research on it at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, she goes to search engines, and when she gets the proper clearance, the search engines just display things like with the information that will normally be redacted.
That's certainly an interesting way to do permission.
We're so far beyond the need for an internet at this point when you've got like nanite computers in everyone's brains. Like, it's just an assumption you connected to everyone else.
Yeah, pretty much though. Yeah.
It's like it's a network. It's not the internet, but they have.
Super advanced internet. Yeah.
The net.
Internet 2.0.
Yep.
Or 3.0.
3.0.
Or maybe 5.0.
Or maybe 5.0, yeah.
Still my Bluetooth's cutting out.
But yeah, I thought that maybe there is like the fact that they're getting nanite infusion. Maybe some of the nanites are like flowing over their skin for whatever reason, and so brushing against other people.
I can see there even being like a field, like a little field around them.
An identity.
They're small enough; you wouldn't see them.
Well, it's physical touch that enables that. So I don't.
Well, there's not. It's also not. It's not necessarily physical touch, like skin to skin.
It's like close to clothes as well, yeah.
Close to clothes, yeah.
Oh man, do you know, I just realized how much of a nightmare would that nightclub be? Like you jam into your tunes, but you're in a nightclub, so you're touching people all the time. And like
I think like if you actively have a theme present, like it probably like overwhelms that.
You could kind of set it, like set your theme to be.
Whereas
it's like I want this theme on, and I don't want to
turn off sharing permissions.
Yeah. So Holly remembers that. So Holly thinks that the default theme of the nightclub is actually different from her own theme. Like she walks in as a PR and goes, "Oh, this is too loud. I remember that my theme, when I still had theming going on, I had actually intentionally like subdued the entire thing, so it's not so bad."
Yeah. I think some people had the same music, but I think at one point she touches someone, it was like a completely different song.
It was like a similar beat, though, I think.
Yeah. It's like it's always like the same song and like beat, but different genres
or covers or things like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think your theme overrides place's default theme.
Yeah,
if you wish it to,
if you wanted to.
I wish there was more theme editing. Like how does that work?
And not only places, right? There's one bit that I thought was really fascinating, where Holly talks about how everyone can like present the way they want to, and the polite thing is when you're looking at someone is to just accept the vision that the way they want to present themselves, but also you can use your theme to like override that. And one of her concerns was that, like when she was looking at the videos of Jonathan, she was like, "Oh, what if I had actually themed him to be more handsome than he actually is?"
Yeah.
God, that's terrifying.
The case.
There was some learning algorithm in there as well, where it learns your preferences. So it could like,
it
might
sort of like it tracks your serotonin. Like when you see certain things, it's sort of like I really like sunlight. So like when it's streaming in through the windows, and so like the next time I go to a renewal station, like the nanites like inform the system like, oh, she really likes natural sunlight, and just like see if you can put more of that in, like that color and that.
It kind of becomes your default theme, not the base, but like your go-to.
It's like she likes these colors, and we get a different like hormone reaction in the brain, like when we see this one versus this one, and
so we give her this one, yeah.
Nanites basically magic, though. It's like we need the theme for the story, and it's magic, and it's a short story, and so that's the tech. That's what we have.
It's like I can see why they didn't go into exactly how they go in and edit the theme. It's like, can you like if they like we are so used to the manual interface, and we're like, what if you just like slide the slider? It's like whereas like. That's probably not even close to how
it's
they.
Like I want cartoon world. It's like okay.
Like we have so many themes. We have so many ideas. Like people have already put into the system hundreds and thousands of like what a cartoon theme would look like.
Yeah.
So try this, adjust it as you will, and go.
Yeah.
So I think after this point, spoilers for Perfect State and for Legion: Lies of the Beholder.
Ah, okay. You're going to make me put another timestamp in. Okay, I can do that. That's fine. I'll put these in the YouTube chapters. So
nice.
Yeah. Okay, so Evgeni did touch on this earlier with Perfect State, but the kind of the gist of that world is that to solve the problem of overpopulation is that the vast majority of people are just brains in a jar, and they have their own personalized world populated with AI where they can just be awesome in a variety of different ways, customized to bring them the most happiness, more or less.
Right.
So in Legion, Stephen Leeds has some sort of disorder where he sees people that are not there, and his brain actively, if like other people interact or pretend to interact with those people, like his mind will fill in the blanks. So it's like setting a glass of like lemonade on a table. He doesn't know for sure whether or not his butler set down a thing of lemonade or if he just made the motion and his brain is just filling in the pieces.
All right.
So he was studied by a group of people who tried to replicate that and kind of like enhance that. And we know those are the same people that went on to create the personalized worlds where everybody is a brain in a jar.
Right.
I think that the original fits as a perfect like midway point between that. So it's like, whereas like they figured out how to like overlay somebody's reality, but they're still people. They're not brains in a jar.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny. Just like when Jonathan is having his whole like, how are we going to solve the problem of all these people who are checked out? Is like the world just decides nobody's checking out ever again.
I mean, that is a logical thing. Right?
We just have to make it more real.
You need to make it better.
I actually, I remember when he first gave this idea. I think Ian, apparently you weren't very excited about the idea. I wasn't either.
No.
Because it sounds very similar to Snapshot, where it's like,
Yeah, I hate it.
you
really didn't like
Did you
Snapshot
really?
It's like just like a terrible story.
Wow,
I liked
liked
Snapshot. I thought it was
I
all
liked
right.
it. But yeah.
But like, it feels very similar. Like Snapshot's just like a focused, like a more focused version of recreate the thing that caused the crime to solve the crime. It was, in the end, it was very different. But like, I felt like I remember when I first had the idea, I was like, "Isn't that just Snapshot again? Like, it's slightly different."
I think that's why I wasn't excited about this. It's
Because you hate Snapshot so much.
It made me think of Snapshot, but I couldn't quite put my finger down on why. In part because I barely remember anything of Snapshot.
I don't really remember. I remember
the
liking
twist. I remember the twist, and that's like it. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you anyone's names. Couldn't tell you anything that actually happened. But I remember the twist.
I'll have to go read it after this.
I think it's good. I liked it.
I liked it.
I now have heard the spectrum of opinions about.
Look, on
short.
Shardcast, you get a lot of opinions about things. Although
Yeah.
I think this one, we definitely got the people who were interested in listening to it on the staff. So people who weren't interested, they're not on this show because they didn't listen. To
People who listened to it of their own recognizance went and are now on this Shardcast.
Yep.
So, can I also add like a Stormlight spoiler? Just a really quick one.
Okay.
It does remind me a little bit of Hoyd's epilogues at the end when he talks about art. It's sort of like, this is sort of like a longer version of like Hoyd is bringing up a conclusion he's drawn about something, about like the way art and the way people perceive things, perceive reality. And, it's sort of like the bit where the two Hollies are confronting each other in the art gallery. That could have been a Hoyd epilogue.
Yeah.
What is it?
In fact,
What
the
does it
opening
mean? Is
line,
this real? Yeah.
the opening line of whether something fake can generate real emotions.
That is a thing
felt
Hoyd could
so
say.
like it could have come out of Hoyd.
Yeah.
I think
It's
Brandon.
sort of
Brandon
like, it's just so interesting to see like what, like, like that Brandon is so occupied by these ideas. Like, it's like as soon as you get multiple works, it's like, oh yeah, just
he really likes talking about the nature of art.
You could say there's a theme.
Squeak, squeak.
Stop touching your microphone, Ben.
I'm sorry. I think it's my wire. I think my wire for my headphones keeps scraping against the thing.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah.
There's a thing that I wanted to bring up, and it never felt like the right time to bring it up.
Okay.
But it has to do with the collaboration between Brandon and Mary Robinette.
yeah.
And just, I've never read a Mary Robinette story.
I have not
I know what some of them are, and some of them are on my list. But there are elements of this story that just didn't feel like Brandon. There were elements that felt very much like Brandon. For example, the scene at the very end where Holly like activates the tent and then goes on and talks about how, oh yes, I couldn't print weapons, but I could trick the 3D printer to give me things that are not weapons, but are still. Yeah, that felt so Brandon to me.
Yeah.
But also like the moment where Skylar is giving kind of a rundown of the Icon firing team to Holly, and then he identifies, I think their name is Zoba Moss, as a non-binary in a very nonchalant way, and Holly is immediately guilt-struck at misgendering them.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't feel like something Brandon would do.
Yeah.
That feels like a Mary thing.
Yeah, and maybe Brandon's like, yeah, in the future that makes total sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The fact that Holly has two dads. Maybe Brandon.
I didn't
pick up on that.
Remember that at all.
Mentioned
I
literally
vaguely
once.
remember that.
Mentioned literally once.
Huh.
The fact that both one of her dads and Jonathan wear skirts. Doesn't feel like a Brandon thing.
Yeah. Jonathan also wears makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something he's fascinated by.
I think
Things like that.
I think the only thing that I picked up on where I was like, oh, I think that was Mary and I think that was Brandon is I think Holly swore once and it was like correctly used. And I was like, oh, that feels like, I don't think Brandon wrote that. I think Mary wrote that.
Yeah, it's Mary Robinette. Yeah.
And it's interesting that they go back and forth, actually. Like, it's not only once, it's a few times you have the timid Brandon, oh, damn. Crap. Huh. And then every now and then you have what I assume Mary's writing to be, oh,
Which,
I do find, I did think there were some scenes where they delve in, like Holly's emotional state is delved into in a level of introspection that I'm like, I don't think Brandon does it this way usually. Like, this feels like this is like the character study and, and the constant focus on her emotional state. Of what she's always reacting to something that's going on around her.
Yeah, I was gonna say I picked up on that and I couldn't tell if that was actually like, I was like, am I just not giving Brandon enough credit or, or being able to do emotional introspection this way? Or is that Mary? Like,
it definitely felt, it was definitely not quite a Brandon story feel. Like, it did feel different. And like, that's totally fine. Like, it was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
And like, full disclosure, at the time when I listened, I hadn't read any Mary Robinette. I have since picked up the Calculating Stars, and I'm partway into that. So maybe after reading some more Mary Robinette, I can go back and maybe see if I can do it a little bit better. It's just like right now it's Brandon and not Brandon.
Right. I mean, that's true.
Yeah. I had read some Mary Robinette before. I read her novella in the Shadows Beneath anthology.
Oh, yeah.
Which it's the best story in that anthology.
I'll have to read it.
It is.
I think
way better than Sixth of the Dusk.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm in. I'm sold.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say.
And I've also read her Glamorous Histories, which
is that's on my list.
It's very good. It's basically Jane Austen, but with light weaving, and it's very good.
I have it on my. I think I have the first one. Just ready.
Yeah, but unfortunately, like I read those all like several years ago, so I couldn't pick out like anything specifically Mary Robinette.
Yeah,
but I also did pick up The Calculating Stars, which the audiobook, which is narrated by Mary Robinette herself.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And boy, does that! I started that book and it's like, oh, this is not a Brandon book at all. Very good. Definitely not a Brandon book.
Yeah.
How much? I feel like all the fruit carving. I feel like that's very Robinette because I mean she's dealt with puppets as like very craftsy. Yeah. I didn't know a dang thing about fruit carving. I didn't even know this was a thing. That's how little craftsy I am. So
when I was re-listening to this, and so I was specifically trying to pick out like, okay, I can kind of tell this scene is Brandon, and I can tell that this scene is probably not Brandon, so it's Mary, right? And I was trying to like put in words what the difference in their styles is, and I think what it boils down to is one, the emotional state of the character. Like, for example, when Holly is experiencing strong emotions, whether that is like when she kind of breaks down after escaping the restaurant in the sewers, or literally anytime she thinks about Jonathan, like the way she thinks about Jonathan is unlike anything that Brandon has written. True. Like Brandon has written some romances where we get the woman's point of view. Mm-hmm. It doesn't read like that at all.
No.
Like,
there's like the moment like when she thinks about his laugh and how, like what it feels like to make someone you admire that much like laugh like that. And it's like, and like that is such like a real moment of like, oh,
that characterization was really good. Like that was really, really good.
Yeah. So that's the first thing where I think there's a difference. And the second thing is the thing you touched on, Eric, which I feel like Mary Robinette's style is much more like tactile.
Yes.
Like the
She
description of the fruit was
describes-
so tactile. You're totally right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not only the fruit. Like she describes how things feel and how they taste and how they sound and how they feel to the touch.
Yes. Like when she's describing when she has a slice of orange peel and she's describing like the tartness on her tongue. I was like, yeah, that's not Brandon.
And not only that, but like the way Holly's mouth like pulls away from the tart flavor of the bitter flavor of the orange, like things like that. Or another place where I wasn't quite sure whether it's Brandon or Mary, but there's a recurring theme in the entire book where we get these sentences where Holly is describing her environment, unthemed environment. And it starts off with the hospital where it's like the first 20 seconds of the book or whatever, where she goes that she was covered by a thin white sheet, wearing a thin white gown in a thin white room.
Yeah.
And so we get these adjective or maybe couple of adjectives and then white, the word white, and then a noun, and then a sequence of these. And I didn't take note of all of them, but like this is one of them.
A lot of them.
There is like mentions of like white falseness or whatever. Or later on, like when she actually physically goes in the apartment, I think there's a bit where she says pristine white walls, I want to say, and then pristine white something else. And there are like 4 or 5 of these, and I don't know how to describe this particular sentence structure, but it's that.
It was repetitive
adjective,
for effect.
Yeah. And I felt these were real neat. Yeah.
It like that. I noticed that one that you mentioned just in the hospital room, and that was like, ooh, this is nice. And the narration really added to that. Like, I don't know how well it would have appeared like reading it, but
in text,
as someone saying it, it was really powerful, I think.
Like there was a real sense of like immediacy to whatever was going around. Like this didn't feel like, maybe this was part of being in like first person versus third person, but you really felt like this is really just what she's seeing and feeling and reacting to, and it just felt so like in the moment, which really good.
And we haven't had any Brandon stories where it's first person and the protagonist is an adult woman.
You got so close to almost being Skyward there.
I know. But what I'm saying is I was like thinking like some of the things that we're ascribing as not Brandon, I don't necessarily know if that is totally
exactly
true,
like, but it's sort of like he mostly does third person,
and like I'm sure he would be excited to explore like, hey, I'm a replica, and like, what do things feel like? And maybe he would be exploring tactileness more, but maybe Mary Robinette could be like, yo, I'm a good fit for this because I do know, like, this is my style doing this. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I think it's less like Brandon wrote this, Mary Robinette wrote this. It's this part Brandon heavily influenced, this part Mary Robinette heavily influenced.
It's not like Good Omens where you can like almost tell which one lines were Terry Pratchett and which were Neil Gaiman.
It was a really smooth fusion. Like I never really felt like it was.
It wasn't paragraph, Brandon paragraph, Mary Robinette paragraph, and
It's kind of about voice. And I think the way this worked out is Brandon just kind of wrote the whole thing, and then Mary Robinette heavily revised,
wrote a new draft.
And they had a lot of back and forth and things like that.
So technically, what happened was Brandon wrote the outline, like the world building Bible.
I'm shocked.
Mary Robinette wrote the first draft, then Brandon wrote the next draft, and then Mary Robinette wrote the third draft.
That makes a lot of sense that they would do it like that.
And that, like, because it does feel really cohesive. And like, we're honestly just running our mouths trying to like guess. Like we have no idea. We have no idea. No. We could be totally off base. If either Brandon or Mary Robinette watch this, we're so sorry. We're just we're just going. We're just going.
But
Brandon's sitting there like, I ate so many oranges to get that description right.
Oh, this is the one episode Brandon listens to. He doesn't listen to this show. But
word gets back.
But that makes sense, right? That if that's the first draft, that there would be a lot of more tactile stuff that it like doesn't feel as much as Brandon's writing, even though obviously he revised things and put a bunch of prose. But yeah, if I were these two different people, what a weird sentence, Eric. Yeah, makes sense that he would be doing the world building. Like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, if Brandon writes, hey, like you get a world building doc that says like the entire world around them is actually just like these white walls, white rooms, white clothes, so that it's easier for like whatever to imprint on them, and then going, oh yeah, I can make this horrific, I can make this.
Yeah. Are you guys excited for more Brandon collabs?
Yes.
I'm also excited for more audio.
And I'm also excited that this, more Mary Robinette. Like, it's like, this is great. What a great lead in. And I've started getting into her library just of last night, and it's great.
Yeah, I do plan on exploring more of her stuff after this.
I need to read more.
Yeah, she's been on my radar for a very long time.
Oh yeah,
essentially since she showed up on Writing Excuses.
She always has so much great stuff to say there, for sure.
Yes.
I was going to say I've never listened to Writing Excuses, and this was literally the first I ever heard of her. Like
she's
literally
great.
the first time I've heard her name.
She's really smart.
She is. Yeah, she's very smart.
I mean, I liked audio things, but I would just, oh man. Guys, I don't know how people would listen to a whole Stormlight book. Like, I don't know. Like, that's...
I've listened to all of them in audiobook multiple times.
Oh, man. It just seems so long. It was a very good presentation of an audiobook. It's just I still would rather not. Do we want to close this episode with a bit of what would our themes be? Oh, that's fun. I like that. I like that a lot. And so my understanding is that themes in the world of the original are not like universal. You can still have kind of a, your renewal stations can look like a childhood memory or something like that. And then your nightclub can be a horror story. Yeah, for sure. So something that is quintessential us. Something that we like a lot. And it can be a club, it can be our house, it can be the place we live in. I know exactly what mine is, so I'm gonna start. Good, because I have no idea.
I actually do know what I would pick too.
I'm going on the assumption that I am me, and like this technology has been introduced in my lifetime. Not that I was born in this world, because I have no idea what someone born in that world. Sure, I would never theme. I would never get nanites.
That's a cop out.
I'd be a checkout. I'd absolutely be a checkout.
Well, you're paranoid about everything with technology.
Exactly. I
know. You're saying like if you right now went into that world, like as like
if tomorrow someone said, "Hey, we have nanites and they can in the world," I'd be like, "No, thank you." Like,
of course, you wouldn't.
Of course,
you're paranoid about everything. When we've had this discussion
it's like
many times.
I would have a hard time making that choice with me now. It's just sort of like I don't trust like that. But if like let's say I was convinced about the safety and efficiency and privacy of the nanites, and I was like just exploring and trying this out for myself. Like I'm not an outdoorsy person all the time, but it's like I do get really sick of cityscapes. It's like it's not for me. It's like I would probably just be doing like versions of like the forest theming all, like everywhere. It's just sort of like, no, I want to live in a small town where I have to see like very few people, and it's just going to be all outdoorsy all the time. It smells better out there. Like the air is cleaner. It's like it's quieter. Like I just sit on my front porch. Like I have like this like place in my mind where it's like in the front porch at my parents' place, and the sun is shining, and it's like just early fall, like it is now. And and there's no sound. I'm just sipping an iced tea, and like there's just wind in the trees and a distant lawnmower, and it's like, yeah. This is like this is the environment I prefer. it's like there's actually space. Like in a city, doesn't it feel like, I don't know, like there's not really space for me to just relax and chill. I always have to be on guard when I go outside. It's so it's like I can see what I would do if I had access to theming.
This is actually a question I asked myself after reading the book, and I've been trying to figure it out. And it's like, and I have the idea in my head of what I would want.
Yeah.
And it makes sense in my head. But translating it into words makes it sound like a complete mess.
Go for it.
So it's like, one, there do have to be trees. So it's like tree-lined boulevards. And then like the buildings, this mixture between like not medieval, but like older architecture juxtaposed with like modern like architecture with like the clean lines and just like a clean, calm, like bright green like leaves and grass and just like wind in the trees, like really, really heavy wind because I love wind in trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like overcast sky.
I will say you are just describing London.
I was like, you're describing like a European city. Yeah.
Ben is going to say this is just England, and I should
because like London.
I wasn't going for England, but I was going for like Europe, where they have buildings that are like probably at least 400 years old.
You have Georgian right next to like brutalist architecture. Yeah, like it's all there. Yeah.
I like new buildings. New buildings are pretty great. I like new buildings.
I like the vibe. I like the look of the older ones when I walk by them when the leaves are falling from the trees, and it's just way prettier.
Yeah, I want everything to have modern amenities. I just want some of them to look old.
Yeah, go inside. Yeah, go inside and it'll be like clean and you have running water and AC.
Yeah.
But
on that note, before I go and answer my own question, I have grown a little tired of how new Chicago feels in general. Pretty much everyone on the podcast and some of our listeners will know that I heed originally from Bulgaria, which is a country that is at this point like 14 centuries old or something like that. And so 13. And so I am very used to like old architecture, like not dominantly, but you know, a church here, an old building there, and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so living in Chicago, where the city hit the reset button a century and a half ago with the Great Chicago Fire.
It sure did.
It's a little weird. It's a little. I need the old stuff, which is why I enjoy going back to Europe so much, because it like it doesn't need to be Bulgaria. Like even going to like anywhere in England, really, it feels like home, even though I've never lived there. Right.
I really want to get over there. One of the years.
Someday when Americans will, yeah.
But to go back to my question, I've always been a city boy, and so I think for me it's going to be like it's going to be a little bit of a mixture between like a suburb and a downtown, right? So I kind of want the downtown stuff with the skyscrapers and the big buildings and the blocky like the efficient architecture and a lot of glass, a lot of steel. And then, but I also want the suburb life, right? I want the houses. I want the space. Like one of the issues I have with like proper Chicago that is not suburbs and that is not downtown is that it is just cramped. Like everything is next to everything else and it feels so crowded and I hate it. And so it's nice that in the suburbs it's, you know, you have the spacing between the different buildings, and that's nice. And so yes, I would want the trees and I would want some grass and I would want some parks and things like that. I would love like a stream or a river somewhere in there.
Water.
I do. Water is good.
Yeah.
I do quite enjoy the tinkling sound of river as it goes over like
It's nice.
Oh yeah, like have
tiny
you ever guys
waterfalls.
sat on a riverbank and like watch the sun reflect off it as you go?
Mhm.
You can just sit there and like be mesmerized for hours. Like
That is one thing I would amend to mine is like I would be on the coast. Because while I am not a beach
Ooh.
person, I am an ocean person. I like
I like that.
being by the sea on occasion.
I like that.
See, all you guys are weird with like wanting old buildings. Old buildings are nice to look at. I would never want to live in one. I like the modern aesthetic inside my house at all times.
You can have it inside, but
Yeah, but like not. I don't even like. I don't want to live in a place that like looks or feels old at all. I do not like it.
Hey,
I
Eric.
have. Yeah.
When do you think my house was built?
I don't know. Well, I mean, everything's old in the old world, Ben. But
It's we have it on our street on a little placard. It was built in 1892.
oh, buff.
I used to live in a house that was in 1837.
This place was built last October, so that's where I live. It's literally brand new, and I got to pick everything up. It was great, but like I do, like 60 degrees, sunny, light wind, river walking by is nice. Like people are kind of annoying, but like I don't. Like, I'm not a country person at all. I lived in Montana for a decade, and now I'm not there, and it's kind of nice to not be there. But, I don't know. But, like as far as, like, a cityscape, like, I don't know. Let's go sci-fi on this. Like, old things are lame. Let's do new things. Let's do even newer things. That sounds cool and fun.
I'm like, no, let's make this like as natural as possible. It's like if I have to live in a city, like just like make it like overgrown with like trees. Like let's do it. Let's
See, the advantage to theming is that you can be like, today I'm feeling this theme, and I want the city to look like it's the post-apocalypse where plants have run over and like I'm seeing wild animals walk around and stuff. Like you can
it
just
would
do
be
that.
beautiful and functional. You just go into a building and it's just like an entire building overgrown with a tree, and you go into the roots and just like listen.
Yeah. I'm a boring suburb kid who's always lived in suburbs, so I really like suburbs.
Whatever makes us feel safe and happy.
See, I'm just like, wow, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I don't need to change stuff, but yeah, I'd probably take some nanites. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys seem to have fun with your answers, so I've decided I'm going to actually answer the question.
Oh, that's
instead of
good.
picking
Yeah.
out of the-
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
because your
Let's go.
total
I think-
cop-out answer was lame. Yeah, right.
But I still think, here's what I think. I think if I lived in a sci-fi dystopia, I think I'd just have it themed just after the sci-fi dystopias. It would like always be night. It would always be raining.
And
Everyone would always be wearing like
neon.
like everything's neon everywhere.
Yeah, so it's just
there's
Blade Runner.
Like it's just Blade Runner. But here's the thing.
Cyberpunk
also-
2077.
I also
City.
really like sunny days. So I think I'd like switch between always raining nighttime and like beautiful sunny days. Like where it's just not a cloud in the sky. There's a nice cool breeze.
See, I don't need
And, like-
theming for beautiful sunny days and it always having a breeze because I live in a really great
You
place.
do.
It's really pretty. It's blue all the time, except when it looked like Scadrial a month ago. That was
That's why they have domes, because like if it's raining but you want it to be a sunny day.
Yep, that's exactly why they have domes. Oh, so it's basically Trantor from Asimov. It's just like it's all city.
Yeah.
I'm gonna amend slightly my answer and also add a mountain.
We can go so deep. Yeah.
I do miss looking at mountains. California mountains are lame by comparison to Montana mountains. That is for sure.
Illinois is flat.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
want
pretty terrible.
something in my landscape. Okay, it doesn't need to be a mountain. It can be like a space elevator, but just
Yeah.
either or. You know,
I would not have a mountain, but it would be hilly. So
God, like being in a mountain valley is really nice. It does feel very homey to me living in such a place for 10 years. That like
And
California is
now-
just weird. California is just weird. There's so many people, and it's weird being next to the ocean because I've never lived next to an ocean. It's kind of nice. It is. I have a great commute along the ocean. when people commute. But.
Yeah.
And now that the Shardcast audience has heard all of our deep hopes and dreams for our ideal realities.
Huh.
I
mean, I think my answer is totally lame because I have no idea what I'd want. So I'd probably just switch through themes and never find one I liked. Honestly. Put your theme in the comments below. Get those engagements so the YouTube algorithm that we talked about likes us, because I tell you, one of the goals of that YouTube algorithm is the more engagement, the more it gets shared, as recommended. And so we only talked for almost over half of the runtime of this audio. So we're doing great. But the thing is that when you get 5 people blabbing, we can blab a long time. We could probably blab another hour if we weren't tired.
Yeah, it's Ben made me think about the Spelt short story that I read in high school again, and I'm like, wow, it was thinking back. If you haven't read this, I'll try and find a link. It's free school materials. Just one of these little high concept stories that I read. My teacher gave me a lot of these in English class, so I'll try and find some.
That's English teacher stuff.
English teachers, they love these little short free stories.
To make you think.
Harrison Bergeron is the one I remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
One of the few short stories I've actually finished writing is literally all about consciousness and memory manipulation, and it's literally
so you really like that subject.
I really like these ideas.
Did you guys ever read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep in high school?
I've never done that.
I did not.
Yeah, it's I read it a long time ago. I don't remember, but it's you went in about this, and I'm this is exactly the vibe. You're totally right. Of a little short contained. It's not the Svelte, it's the Velt by Ray Bradbury. So you can find it. It's right there, as a PDF, for teacher resources on Google. Intermediate level story.
And that is what Blade Runner is loosely based off of.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow, we've sure talked about a lot of different things in this episode.
I have one more thing I want to say. I want to make sure I got this in before the end.
Okay.
Do you guys watch? Have you guys watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
No.
I am aware of his existence.
I'm aware of its existence.
At the end of every episode, they have the theme tune that plays the to be continued thing. But in the lead up to that little dun 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 tune, there's a guitar snare that happens in the lead up to the ending, and it's the same guitar snare that they use in the original all the time. I swear to God, it's the exact same guitar snare. And I'm sitting there, and I keep thinking, is someone playing the JoJo theme nearby? I'm like, oh no, it's the book. I'm like,
oh my God, is this a JoJo reference?
With the music that I think I would have liked the action scenes a little more if it was more than just the same action scene track. It's it's intense. It's they just always plays the same music. I was that's fine, but we could have switched it up a little bit. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even with something like graphic audio, you don't get a lot of budget for
of course
for music tracks.
I bet
once you listen to a few of, let's say, Brandon's books, or not even Brandon's, you start identifying that this is the action theme, this is the love theme, this is the kind of calming, relaxing theme. And they have about an album worth of tracks.
It was really invisible to me, because it's sort of I don't think you're supposed to be that consciously aware of it. I mean, some people will be like Eric, you just seem to notice it every time, but I was just didn't even notice that the theme was being repeated. I'm just this is the unconscious. You're being keyed into this is now an action-y scene.
I mean, it was just because they used it 4 to 5 times that it's
no, I mean, I didn't notice. It was was not conscious of the music being used the same time.
Other than that guitar snare and the music in the nightclub, I didn't even notice that there was music playing during fight scenes. I have no idea what music you're talking about.
It was very subtle. It would just made it feel a bit more intense. I'll
have to re-listen.
It's definitely there though. But it's
a nice
subtle. It's a nice subtlety. It's really good.
Before it was just part of Eric's theming, and
I mean, I am going insane, so that's fine. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Shardcast. You can find all your news, theories, discussion, and fun about the original and all Brandon works on 17shard.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can support us on Patreon if you want. Join us in Discord. We're chatting about stuff too. And yeah, we'll see you all next time.
Okay. Also read Mary Robinette Kowal.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was really good. So yeah, definitely should.
Bye.
Bye.
Touch us so we can share our themes with you.
Oh, okay. I'm glad. Cool. Call.